Lisa Schnebly Heidinger is celebrating Arizona with lots of interesting people, so you'll hear wonderful voices with new stories. Grab your favorite drink and settle in. We're celebrating Arizona, going everywhere from A to Z, and we're off.
Welcome, everyone, to Celebrating Arizona. I am excited for all of you. Some of you, probably because you care about Arizona, have seen or heard Roger Naylor speak or talk, but those who haven't are in for a treat. I have been reading Roger Naylor's work for, I think, decades. And back in the day when he was at the Arizona Republic, I've never written to anybody else as often as I did to him, just unsolicited emails to say, "I love how you said that. I love how you did that. I loved how you," and it was never because he knew bigger words or he was effete or pretentious. He just put together language in a way that nobody else does. And so I've seen him speak and I've read his work, and now he's here to talk. And welcome, Roger.
Thank you so
Welcome.
much for having me. It's an absolute privilege. Wonderful to spend time with you. And I can't tell you how much those emails meant to me, and especially when I was just starting out as a freelance travel writer of the Republic and kind of overwhelmed with the idea. And here I'm getting emails from you, of all people, who I respected and admired and already read and was seen on television, and you were taking the time to compliment a specific line or a little bit, and for a writer, as you know, that means a lot. That means a lot.
Because our published words, I think, and I get to say this because I've had two kids, published books and having children are so the same. Partly because at first, only you know about it, and then you and a few people know about it. And then when it goes out in the world, you think, oh my gosh, I know how cruel the world can be. I hope the world is good to this. And it's so, yes, you're right. We all need feedback. When and where did your Arizona begin? Because boy, do you have a rich, varied, bursting Arizona.
Arizona saved my life. It was back in 1975. It was a getaway for me, basically. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, and had a wonderful high school sweetheart. We were going steady for a couple of years. She had my class ring on her finger, wrapped in yarn to hold it on there, as they did back then, and everybody was pretty convinced that once we graduated, we were going to get married. Her parents loved me, my parents loved her, and back in those days, back in the 70s, that's kind of what you did, especially from our background. My parents are both from deep backwoods Kentucky, and her
Really?
family is from Tennessee and stuff. So once you got your schooling out of the way,
Oh.
you got married and you settled down and started making the babies. And my dad was working at General Motors at the time. He was going to help me get a job there, and he was going to co sign a loan so we could buy a house. So I was going to be 18 with a wife, a mortgage, and a factory job. And suddenly I started realizing I can't breathe. This is my life. It's slipping away from me, because I already knew I was going to be a writer. I knew I was going to be a writer when I first picked up a book of Mark Twain essays when I was like 12 or 13. And I told
Ah.
everybody I was going to be a writer. Of course, nobody pays attention to a kid about that kind of stuff. But anyway, so all of a sudden I felt like I just needed to get away. And I didn't know. I thought about hopping a freight train, because I had uncles who would hop freight trains, for
Really?
years, and made it sound like quite the adventure. I thought about I could run away to join the circus. And then I thought about college. I had no interest in college because, again, I was going to be a writer, and I didn't know what you would go to college for other than to learn to teach high school English or to be a journalism major, be a reporter.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know about. I didn't want to do either of those things. But I started thinking about college as an escape. And
Ah.
so I started looking at colleges on the sly not without telling anybody, and looked out west because I wanted to get as far away as I could. And California, Oregon, too expensive. But I found a little school in Flagstaff Northern Arizona University. That was very reasonable. I could actually pay for an entire year of college myself just out of my savings because I'd been mowing yards since I was like 12.
Oh
So
my
I had
God.
those were the days back when you could pay for a year of college out of grass cutting money. So I applied. I sent a letter off. I applied without telling anyone. And it was already 10 days past the deadline. This was over the summer.
Uh-oh.
And I didn't say anything. And then I would go camping with a buddy of mine down the Smoky Mountains. He drops me off. I'm walking back up the driveway. And I still remember my mom comes out and is standing on the porch holding an envelope. And she's
With a
giving me,
scathing expression.
she is giving me that mom look. And I'm pretty sure my middle name is about to be invoked here. But she said, you have a letter here from Northern Arizona University. Is there anything that you want to tell me? And so I had been accepted. Nobody knew I was had applied. I'd been accepted, and I had to be there in 6 days.
Ooh.
So a huge to do. My dad was furious. Mom was worried. My little sister's in tears. My girlfriend's very
I
puzzled
was
by
going
the
to
whole
say, now the
thing.
girlfriend, is she saying, am I
Yeah.
going with you?
Yeah. So no, and so yeah, that was. So I got on the plane for the first time in my life. Flew
Oh.
out to. We had a layover, about 5 hour layover in Denver, Colorado, and I don't think I moved. I don't think I budged because I took a seat by a big window and I'm gazing at the Rocky Mountains for the first time in my life, and I just sat there. And then we got on a smaller plane, a tiny plane. We dusted crops as we were heading into Flagstaff, and we touched down. I stepped off the plane. I smelled that pine scented air for the first time, and all of a sudden I could breathe again. I knew I saw the outline of the San Francisco peaks, and I knew I was home. I knew that was it, and it was love at first sight for
I
me.
wouldn't have thought I could like you better, but I do. That is so wonderful.
It
Oh.
quickly derailed my college career because I was dean's list the first semester. By the second semester, I was on academic probation because by then I was just never in class. Because by then I discovered I can go to class, or I can hitchhike to the Grand Canyon, or down to Sedona, or I was just So I just took off and started rambling, and then I dropped out of college after that year. And pretty much the next 3 or 4 years, that's all I did. I just hitchhiked around Arizona and worked when I needed
And
to,
I was
would
going to
head
say, how
back.
do you
And,
support the habit?
well, yeah, I would take odd jobs. I did all kinds of different work. And then when I'd run out of money completely, or I'd go back to Ohio, and, I could always mow yards and do landscape and make some money and come back. And so it was just this great life through the end of my, teenage years into my early 20s there for everyone except my poor parents, who were thrilled that their son was now a drifter, apparently.
That's a good word,
But
isn't it?
but I was actually just a travel writer in training.
Well,
I was a vagabond. So yeah,
you were following Aunt Abby's example. I
yeah.
mean,
I didn't know it at the time, but yes, I absolutely was. That's what I started discovering. And I feel blessed because I feel like I'm kind of the last generation that got to do that. That where the road was still filled with vagabonds. I mean, there's still a lot of long-haired people with backpacks and a lot of camaraderie and stuff. It didn't really start to change until the 80s, when every hitchhiker kind of looked like they were just got out of prison or something. There was still a lot of kind of young idealistic people out there.
so when was your first semester at NAU?
75, yeah, August of
Okay.
75. Yeah, I just
All
celebrated
right.
my 50th year last year.
You
So
did,
I
didn't you?
uh-huh.
Yeah. I did one semester at NAU, fall of 74, and I was too young and I washed out.
Uh,
I wasn't mature enough to be away from home, sadly. But I think that helped me always try to get back to Flagstaff. So nothing's all bad.
well, as much as I love Flagstaff, it always holds a special place in my heart because that's where I discovered it, and so for years, I mean, when my wife and I got married, we honeymooned out in Arizona, and
Wait,
I'd
so did
travel
you
around.
marry the high school?
No,
Oh,
I'm sad to say, not sad to say, but I knew it would be a really bad fit. It wasn't going to work. I ran into her some years later, and she seemed very happy, and
good.
she had kids and married. So I think it worked out for both of us. We needed to go our
Good.
separate path. But no, I met the woman I was supposed to marry about 10 years after that. But every time we would come out to Arizona for a honeymoon and vacation, I would give her a little tour of the NAU campus, much too, which
Oh.
was cute the first couple of times, and then I think quickly, again, do we have to go see where Peterson Hall is again?
Oh, I don't know if you know this, but my parents were the first head residents at Peterson when it opened.
Oh no, I did
I
not
was
know
6
that.
months
Oh
old.
my goodness.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's it. Oh, I love just hearing the name. So you were living somewhere else when you got married. What was that
Yeah,
about?
well, I moved back to, I would be sort of living back and forth in Arizona and Cincinnati, and I finally
Okay.
was back in Cincinnati for a while working to try to build up some money, and that's where I met my soon-to-be wife. But
Okay.
um, she knew that when I was a package deal with Arizona, she knew that once we got married that we
Terrific.
would be coming out this
And
way.
are you still together?
Oh yeah, yeah. We'll celebrate
Oh, how
40
marvelous.
years in October.
How
Yeah.
great. Congratulations.
I don't know what her game is. I don't know what she's sticking it out some, but she thinks she's got to feel like, I'm
I've
going to
put so
ride it
much
out to
into
the
him
end.
now.
Oh, she's a wonderful woman, very talented artist who tolerates me and does everything. With as far as the books go, I just write the damn things, and she does everything
Oh,
else.
how
She helps with
marvelous.
getting them all ready and proofreading, and then also does all the selling online. So people buy on my website. She does all the shit. All
Wow.
that stuff. So yeah, I'm very fortunate.
Oh, that's terrific. Okay, there is a beautiful stack of Roger Naylor books here. So we're going to take a very quick break and then we're going to come back and talk about some of your favorite places.
Sure.
Okay. Navajo National Monument lets us see glimpses of a long cultural history. Quetzal, Batatakin, and Inscription House are large pueblos from the 13th century. Residents even before that were hunters and gatherers moving around the area. Then, 2,000 years ago, residents began growing corn and other crops, and pit houses were built in villages. There are a variety of trails and tours, something to suit everyone. So we're back with Roger Naylor and his wonderful, wonderful books. Some I already own, some I don't. But you have written about virtually every part of Arizona. I'm trying to think of a place you haven't written about.
Yeah, I think I've tried to cover this incredible state of ours as best I can, because that's everything I do, everything I write is designed to encourage people to get out and explore our amazing backyard, our astonishing backyard. I know how much it's meant to me over this past half century to just be able to get out and share in this diversity. I live in Cottonwood. We've
Okay.
lived there for 30 some
Oh,
years,
wow.
and so when I get to the end of my driveway, if I turn left in 45 minutes, I'm up in the world's largest contiguous ponderosa pine forest at 7,000 feet. If I turn right in 45 minutes, I'm hiking among the Sororos down in the Sonoran Desert. I mean, who has diversity like that kind of thing?
Isn't that
Where you
true?
can change your season, you can change your climate, you can change your scenery, not with a plane ride or an all-day drive. You can get up in the morning and be someplace and experience something completely different by lunchtime from almost anywhere in the state.
So many kinds of beauty here. And I know I'm thinking about Max Ernst and a couple of others. My daughter and I got to go to Europe, I don't know, 12 years ago, something. And I know that Europe is not all the same, but there is a sameness to a lot of places. Bunch of green, little town, and bunch of green, little town. And I could understand how particularly Europeans and even East Coast people could come out and see what you and I see and go, "Oh my gosh." I mean, we have like a dozen states in our borders.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I remember an Arizona Highways issue when I was still writing for them many years ago. They did an entire issue of all 50 states in Arizona. Where they took photos and they would match it up with
Oh,
a different state. It was really
interesting. Good
interesting,
for
really
them.
nice. I've still
Yeah.
got it on in my bookshelf somewhere and stuff. But
Oh,
yeah.
terrific. Well, there's nowhere you don't like. Just indulge me. What are some of the places that you go back to? Particular burgers, particular roadside stops, particular state parks? What or when somebody else comes, where do you think, "Oh, they need to see fill in the blank?"
Right. Well, it always depends. My favorite state park is always going to be Dead Horse Ranch State Park because it's my neighborhood park. It's
Oh.
7 minutes from my house. I am there. I was there 4 or 5 times this past week. If I'm home, I'm usually there. I'm hiking along the Verde River or up in the hills. I mean, just to be able to have that kind of backyard is
Oh,
truly
yeah. Do you
special.
know, I
And
got to write about that for highways. I was pregnant with my daughter, and it wasn't open yet, and we went.
yeah.
And so I have a fondness for dead. But anyway,
Yeah, and they've done a really nice job, even with the growth. They've expanded, added cabins, added another campground, more lagoons, but it's still just so you have water and shade and hills and desert and all right
if
there.
I said bucolic, would that be the right word?
I think so. I mean, I get to whatever my mood takes me that day. Sometimes I want a little workout, so I head up in the hills and do 4 or 5 miles or 6 miles or do a nice little rugged climb somewhere. I once I start on the Lime Kiln Trail, I can actually go all the way to Sedona. That
I didn't
old
know
wagon
that.
road is the Lime Kiln historic wagon trails of 15 miles takes you over to the entrance of Red
I've
Rock State Park.
never heard of
So
that.
I've done that a couple of times. It's really fun and stuff.
Impressive.
So this week we're at that edge of monsoon, kind of where it's dry, and so I'm craving that water. So just to be able to hike in the shady woodlands
Oh,
along with the Verde
yeah.
River flowing past, and to see the shafts of sunlight in the early morning penetrating that forest canopy like velvet gloved angel fingers that just kind of poke through, and to have those kind of moments, that's just something really special
That's
and
the
stuff. So,
Naylor line. Thank you for that
uh,
one.
I think my favorite place in the whole state might be Chiricahua National Monument down in the
Really?
southeastern corner. I feel like if that were in any other state, it would be on their license plate. It's just a this incredible wonderland of rocks with caused by a volcanic event about 25 million years ago, and now it looks like the skyline is made from the stonework of wilted castles. It's just all these hoodoos
Wow.
and columns and towers and spires, and just a great system of trails there. So I probably camp there just about more than any place else in the
Really?
state, and hike
So
there.
you
So I always
I'm
love
I
that.
am
Yeah, yeah.
such a hotel devotee, but you camp.
I less than I used to. I used to camp all the time, and I hope to get back to it a little bit. But once I started with the travel writing, I had to kind of curtail it because I always had a laptop. I always had,
Oh,
I'm traveling
sure.
with equipment, and I can't just leave everything in a baking tent all day and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of had to shift more towards motels and hotels and stuff. So um, a place that I've really has captivated me over the last few years more and more. I tend to head for the Arizona Strip a lot. I just love
I
that.
love that you love the strip.
That's yeah. When I was reading your friendship book and your the or I loved your writing about the Lee's Ferry. We had such different, but you as a rafter had such a different take on it, and and I love hiking that little
Okay.
river trail and back to the Lonely Dell Ranch, and I can uh, in fact, one time last year, for some reason, I just and I do you ever feel this way where I'm just compelled to go someplace, and my wife's sort of used to it at this time, but I think I'm going to head up to the Strip for a few days, and I ended up spending 2 or 3 nights in Kanab, and it was just great. But the main reason I wanted because I wanted to go sit on a little sandy beach just off the river trail by the Colorado River.
Oh,
I sat there for about an hour. Then I stopped at Cliff Dwellers, had a great
oh.
hamburger, and pushed on to Kanab. And I had a great time, but it was just that. It was that 4 hour drive to sit on that beach and eat that hamburger,
Oh,
and
that's
that's what I needed.
marvelous.
That's what I needed.
And clearly you are deeply immersed in Route 66.
I
Talk
am.
about some places with insides. Where do you like to have insides?
Well, La Posada is always
Ah.
a place that everybody, I think, when I'm elected governor of Arizona, one of my first acts will be to require every Arizona resident to visit La Posada
Oh.
Hotel in Winslow, not just to see how beautiful it is, but to also see the possibility. Because here was this hotel that was condemned, that was empty and had been turned into office space, and they were wanted to get rid of. And it wasn't saved by the government. It wasn't saved by billionaires or the corporations or anything. It was saved by individuals. You know, Alan Effelt, his wife Tina Mion, their friend Dan Lutzick. They jumped through all the hoops to save it. And not only just save it and keep it as some kind of big hollow museum, but restored it, brought it back
Oh, in
to life.
space.
And it reminds us how gracious travel used to be, to sit in those rooms and to share the ballroom and to walk the grounds and eat at the turquoise
Oh,
room and all that.
yeah.
So I love that. And that's very much the story of Route 66 up and down. That's one of the things that I'm so struck by it is it's all those little businesses, all those places that are still going, the old hotels, the motor courts that have been restored, the little diners, all those are because somebody is willing to put in the work. Somebody is putting in the hours and keeping it going, or maybe they brought it back from the dead and they're restoring the old neon signs and stuff. So I love all those kind of places, and I like to champion them. That's my one of my latest books, Arizona Route 66 Road Trip. It's filled with 110 restaurants just across the state along that corridor, 40 motels, and all mom and pops, all locally
Oh,
owned.
how
Because
wonderful.
I nothing against chain restaurants and corporate hotels and big box. We need all that. We absolutely need all that stuff. But when you're on a road trip, when you're just on a little adventure, that's when you want the local flavor. You want to support the little businesses because that's where you make the memories. If you if you're taking a road trip and you're staying in the same hotels night after
Yeah.
night after night and eating in the same restaurants that are just down the street from your house, what memories are you making? You want to experiment, you want to try, have the greatest hamburger of your life, maybe in a little greasy spoon someplace, or maybe you have the worst piece of pie, and that becomes a story you tell for years and stuff. So, yeah, but that's what I want people to get out and do, to remember what those kind of old road trips are like.
That's fabulous. That's three things are spinning off about my dad. One, mom was a Winslow girl, daddy was a Sonoma boy. They got married. She would have loved to have the reception at La Posada because it was still up and going, but it would have cost a whole dollar a person, and there was no way to afford that at the time. So they didn't do it. Second, it reminds me that my dad is a big pie guy, especially on road trips. And part of that is because when he was a kid, so you know that his grandpa named the town Sedona for his grandma. And in those days, before TC headed out to a hard day, he would often eat pie for breakfast because you just need the calories to get through. And so to me, pie is a Northern Arizona staple.
Exactly,
And
you got it.
the third thing about my dad that, and you would have had this conversation if you'd ever had to talk to him, is get what you can't get somewhere else. So that was to me the most tested when he and I were in Colorado City. I had gone there first in 1985 when it was still shut down and there were no restaurants, no food, and gradually it opened up some. So finally, when my dad and I went back for something, there was a restaurant and he looked at the menu and there was a cheese and onion sandwich. And I thought, oh my gosh, that could be Velveeta with raw slices. But he took the risk and was rewarded. It was thick toast with caramelized onions and melting cheese, and it
There you
worked.
go.
It
Yeah, that
worked. It
sounds
doesn't always
wonderful.
work. But I also understand that you've got to check out the burgers because that's who you are. So that's a whole that's more of a calling. That's
Well, burgers were always my favorite food as a kid. And in fact, I was such a picky eater as a kid. They're about the only thing that kept me alive for years. And so, yeah, I'm always really drawn to burgers. And a love that was kind of handed down from my dad. That was one of his
Oh.
favorite food too, and some of my very favorite memories are all with sitting at a little lunch counter someplace with him and
Oh.
having a burger and stuff. So but yeah, I've just always been fascinated, and so I wrote a book many years ago, Boots and Burgers, a handbook for hungry hikers. In fact, I even talked about you and your dad in that, and it went out of. Unfortunately, the publisher went out of business,
Ah.
and it went out of print. So I came out with a brand new edition with that included a lot of the old restaurants and trails, but then also added a whole bunch of new ones. So now 70 trails, 70 restaurants. Because to me, the very best day I can have is to get out in Arizona and hike, have a wonderful hike, work up a sweat, enjoy some beautiful scenery, walk off a few calories, and then find a nice little diner or dive, pack them right back on again with a delicious burger. So that's the best day of all, the Boots and Burgers day.
That's
So
terrific. I'm not a big hiker. I've done it, but it's not
yeah,
you excel at it. You love it.
yeah, I've always been very passionate about hiking. A lot of years I do. I haven't for a while, but maybe once I retire, I'll go back where I keep track, so I'll do over 1,000 miles a year and stuff. And I know that it always sounds very impressive. And well, the reason I originally I always thought, well, I'm going to be one of these guys that hikes the Appalachian Trail.
Oh,
And I finally, at
sure.
some point, realized I'm never going to have 3 months off or 4 months off where I can just drop everything, do that. So that was, I thought, I'm just going to do it I'm more of a day hiker anyway. I like to hike light and fast, and so I just started doing it. I keep track, but it's basically, it boils down to, if you do 20 miles a week all year long, then you get to 1,000 miles at the end
How
of it and
about
stuff.
that?
So yeah.
Marvelous.
So just would get, just helps me get out, day after day after day after day, and enjoy this incredible place that we
Is
live.
there anything left on your life list that you haven't done, or have you pretty much been everywhere you want to be and done everything you want to do?
I have, for the most part. There's still a couple places I still haven't gotten a permit to the wave
Ah,
back in Vermilion Cliff, so I'm hoping to still land one of those. But I don't think there's a paved road in Arizona that I have not driven.
isn't that amazing?
I've driven a lot of dirt roads. I don't have four-wheel drive, so any of the back country that I've done, I've either done with friends or rented Jeep. So I'm sure it's not like I've been everywhere in Arizona. There are still plenty of places to do, to go, and things to do and stuff. I'm at the point where I just enjoy my old favorites time and time again. It's you never see the Grand Canyon the same way. You never see it the same Grand Canyon twice. So
So
I never run out of things. I never lose
it never
interest
gets
in
old,
that.
never
Yeah,
loses luster.
yeah. I had a little incident about 3 years ago where was in the hospital, had some complications from
Ooh,
surgery, and things went south really quickly. So it got to the point where I didn't think I was going to make it. My wife was bringing all our documents down for me to sign, and get everything for the lawyer, because in about 48 hours I had where I didn't think I was coming
wow.
home. And so I had some time. And when I wasn't laying there just in pain, I was kind of contemplating my life. And the good part of that is certainly scary. I didn't want to check out, but never once did I feel cheated. I just
Oh,
thought, nobody's had a better life than me.
oh,
Come
how
on. They pay
great.
me to go hike and eat, so it's, but I thought, and there were no epiphanies. There was none of this, oh man, I wish I would have gone to Spain, or I wish I would have gone swimming with the dolphins, all I thought of, I want to go to Chiricahua again. And I want to get to the Grand Canyon again. I want to be down at Dead Horse again. And I want to sit on my porch with a cat on my lap, and I just want to keep doing exactly what I'm doing. I want more opportunities for that. And, I'm happy to report that I got that. So,
What a
I'm still doing the
beautiful,
same stuff.
beautiful place to be. You
Yeah.
caught it right. You're doing it.
I feel like, I feel, and that's the what I try to convey in my writing is to just make sure that every day matters. The whole idea that we every day live each day like it's your last. That's just nonsense. It's pressure. And not every day is going to be a big adventure, but every day can be a little
There can be
adventure.
something
Yeah,
amazing.
you take something away from each day. You take those moments. I have been a collector of moments for my entire life,
Beautiful.
and that's
Are you an Arizona Trail guy or not so much?
I've day hiked it a lot, and
Okay.
that may be one that once I do retire a little bit, then yeah, maybe that
Fill
that
in
one I
some of the
might attack.
gaps and
Yeah, yeah,
call it
yeah.
done.
But yeah, I've done several sections of it, but
Well, you are as amazing as I thought you were, and I so appreciate this time.
it was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you for having me, and I hope our paths cross again very soon.
Me too.
We'd really like to hear from you about anything this show led you to think about. Write to us at celebratingaz.com. The wizard behind making a conversation into a podcast is Tom Heidinger. The music comes from Daniel Blatton, and I'm Dana Cooper.